Hi, Bacho. A very good evening and a very warm welcome to another session of our chapter of Forest Society and Colonialism, where we are going to discuss about the rise of commercial forestry, part 2. So we've already done the first part in the previous session. We'll be finishing this entire section in today's session. So let's get started. Hi, बच्चों, मेरा नाम Ankana है and I am your expert for social sciences at Embibe. As you can see, this is a quick intro about me where I've done my studies in the field of humanities. I'm associated with the sector of education for more than 9 years now, teaching both online and offline to the students of CBSE and ICSE student and specializing in the subjects of maths and not maths, social science and English. So that was a quick intro. Now talking about this chapter, Forest Society and Colonialism, जो है हमारे पास 3 major topics. Not 3 actually, 4 major topics में बटे हुए. We have 4 major segregations and divisions of this chapter. First one is deforestation in India during the colonial times. Second is rise of commercial forestry, which is also today's topic. We have also done this once before, the half section of it, because this is comparatively larger portion. Then we have rebellion in the forest of Bastar and then forest transformation in Java. All these topics will be covered under this chapter. Today's concepts that we are going to specifically talk about under the rise of commercial forestry part 2 is going to be shifting cultivation, ban on shifting cultivation, what was the impact of the laws that were being brought in by the Forest Act on hunting, how decline, so we have done decline of plantation. We'll also talk about decline of wildlife during the colonial rule because of the changes, because of the rules and regulations, and the rise of trading in forest products and trade regulations which were brought in by the British government and what were their impacts. Okay, so let's get started with a quick recap of what we have done in the previous session. Let me quickly also say hi to everyone. Hello everyone, very good evening and a very warm welcome. Sat Shri Akal, Namaskar, Bonjour, Radha, बहुत स्वागत है आपका. Hi Drishti, hi Tarun, hi Govind, Anjali. Ma'am, school there to start climate, teacher told ENSO will be taught, please teach that. ENSO ka, I'll do one thing. ENSO ka, you'll actually find an explanation on YouTube's session. I have done it last year. But this year I'll do a separate portion coverage on ENSO. But it's not under your syllabus. तो उसके लिए मैं अलग से ही एक सेशन जो है YouTube पे या कभी यहाँ पे भी मैं आपके लिए क्रिएट करके I'll teach you guys. ठीक है, चलो ना talking about the recap, थोड़ा फटाफट से recap कर लेते हैं. Recap में you have scientific forestry. So we saw in the previous session that when people started doing forest cultivation over here, या फिर जब यहाँ पे हमने plantation करना शुरू कर दिया under the colonial rule, the oak forest was getting depleted in Britain, England. So people started moving here and deforestation started happening. Lots and lots of trees started felling because they needed more and more wood. Now, in order to ensure that with all of this cutting of trees and deforestation, the balance was not moving around, because ironically, when the colonial rulers were cutting the trees, it was fine for them, but they were concerned about the fact that the local people were also cutting the trees and that might impact the amount of trees present, and the ecological balance will become disbalanced. So they brought somebody called Dietrich Brandis, who was a German person. He had a German origin. He came as the first Inspector General of the Forest Services, and he started the Forest Services in India as well in 1864. So basically what happens, you guys, is that he starts something called scientific forestry. But now when people look at it and the rules and regulations that it had made, it had nothing related to science in it. The whole idea was clear the patches of forest and grow the same kind of wood, which naturally also resulted in kind of extinction of a lot of varieties of plants and trees, right? So scientific forestry led to monoculture plantations. Monoculture क्या होता है? Where only one kind of tree or plant is grown on a huge patch of land. Villagers heavily relied on the forest for a lot of needs, for right from food to a lot of materials, for trading, for everyday livelihood running. But they were banned because Forest Act made traditional practices illegal for the villagers, so a lot of them were not even allowed to enter it. Or with the practice of scientific forestry, another problem that was occurring to them was that they did not have all those variations of materials available from the forest that was earlier there, because that was a good forest for them, right? They had everything, different plants were providing them medicines, cosmetic products to trade with. But now there was only one kind of tree available, so it was not sufficing for all their requirements and needs. So they resorted to stealing wood and faced bribery demands from the forest guards because they had to pay a lot of taxes because they were not allowed everywhere. Women collecting fuel wood were particularly affected more. They had to face a lot of harassment, bribe the guards a lot of times. Police and forest guards often harassed the villagers, and the Forest Act disrupted villagers' way of life, causing increased poverty and hardship, and only became difficult for them. Only people who were getting benefited out of this was the British government. That was the whole problem, right? Now, have you ever heard the story of the phoenix rising from its ashes? So you might have heard the word phoenix, right? So we say that phoenix kya hota hai? The one who rises from its ashes. So first it sets on fire, it dies down and then rises from the ashes. The story of this Greek mythological bird is quite fascinating. Now, just to imagine that there was somebody whose wings was put on fire and then it converted into ash and it rose from its ashes. It's very interesting and very motivational as well. Even after falling into its own fire and dying, it rises from the ashes stronger, transforming itself into a more powerful bird. Similarly, a forest that has been reduced to ashes can eventually regenerate and regain fertility, producing higher quality vegetation that can then, be utilized at a much larger scale than it existed before several years. So let's understand what is this whole system talking about, what was happening under the commercial forestry further ahead. So we'll for this understand the shifting cultivation, and it's a way of agriculture. Shifting cultivation kya hota hai? What do you mean by shifting cultivation? The name in itself suggests a lot. It's a type of cultivation, it's a type of farming which keeps on shifting from one land to another. So even in today's date, bache, shifting cultivation is practiced. When you read the chapter of agriculture next year in class 10th, you will see that shifting cultivation is a type of agriculture and where is it done, what happens under it. In simplest words, if I have to tell you who practices shifting cultivation and what it is, wo pehle samajhte hain. Let's crack that first. So as the name suggests itself, ठीक है, जैसा कि हमें नाम से ही समझ आ रहा है शिफ्टिंग कल्टिवेशन क्या हो सकता है. So it's a form of farming, it's a form of agriculture which is done on various pieces of land which is kind of not in one place. ठीक है, it kind of keeps shifting, it kind of keeps moving. So what under this is done is it's a traditional farming system. यानी कि टेक्नोलॉजी के साथ बहुत अप टू डेट नहीं होती है. इट्स अ वेरी ओल्ड काइंड ऑफ सिस्टम. ठीक है, इसको आपको प्रिमिटिव इंटेंस सबसिस्टेंस फार्मिंग भी कहते हैं. प्रिमिटिव मीन्स ओल्ड ट्रेडिशनल, डन विथ ओल्ड मेथड्स, डजंट इन्वॉल्व अ लॉट ऑफ टेक्नोलॉजी, अ लॉट ऑफ टेक्नोलॉजिकल टूल्स एंड एडवांस टूल्स. ये सब नहीं होता है. इट्स मोर अबाउट ट्रेडिशनल तरीके से की जाती है. कौन प्रैक्टिस करता था? हु मेजरली यूज्ड टू प्रैक्टिस इट? So वैसे we are yet to do that chapter which is about the pastoralists, but kind of you can say that the pastoralists, the nomads started it. Why? Because nomads are the people who are on the move throughout the year. In one season they settle down in one place and the other season they settle down in the other place depending upon wherever the grass, the pasture is available for their cattle. That is their primary agenda, right? तो मानसून के वक्त जहाँ पे ग्रासेस होगा वहाँ चले जाएंगे, विंटर्स के वक्त जहाँ पॉसिबली ज़्यादा फूड मिलेगा वहाँ चले जाएंगे. Now, while they're on the move for their cattle and they're settled in one place for 4 months, 5 months, 6 months, so to say, they need to cultivate the land over there. So naturally, these are the people who do not have their own land. अपना land नहीं होता है. Plus, the cultivation is not done for the purpose of trading. Trading के लिए cultivation नहीं की जाती. It is done for self-consumption. So what these people usually do is they use old kind of methods. They do not implement a lot of technology because they do not have a lot of money to invest. It is primarily done for their own consumption. So whatever they grow will be consumed by them only. So the farmers, whoever is farming, their family members only come together and do the cultivation. They are completely dependent on nature. Nature ki barish, natural fertility of the soil, no additional things of added biochemicals. ये सारी चीजें नहीं होती. All of this is not there, right? So what is basically done is एक forest जैसे मान लो ये पूरा forest है. Let's imagine that this entire thing is the forest. They'll clear a patch of land in the forest. What do you mean by clear the patch of land? All the trees that are there, the trees and plants that are there are cut over here, and then whatever stubble is remaining, जो भी थोड़ा बहुत उनका roots वगैरह remaining होगा, that is put on fire. उसको जला दिया जाता है. That is burned. Then in those ashes itself, the seeds are sown. उस ash में ही seed को sow किया जाता है. It is usually done at the beginning of the monsoon, so that with the first rain, the sowing and the what do you say, the growing, the saplings can start popping out from the seeds. वो थोड़े थोड़े छोटे छोटे पौधे जो है अब निकलना शुरू कर दे बीज से. And by the onset of your winters के शुरू होते होते तक the cultivation is ready. Now what has been done? A patch of land has been cleared over here. So every season on season for 6 to 8 years, 6 से 8 साल तक क्या करेंगे ये? इसी patch of land पे whenever they come and visit here, if it is a pastoralist, if it's not a pastoralist, it is somebody, if it's not a nomad, it is somebody who stays there, then also they'll keep cultivating on it for 6 to 8 years. We have understood that it is completely dependent on nature. Nature dependent होता है, natural fertility dependent होता है. तो जब fertility क्या होगा कि धीरे धीरे cultivation के बाद fertility of the soil will start decreasing because of the multiple cultivation rounds. So then that land is left alone. For next again 12, 18, 16 years, 15 years it is left, so that the plants and the plants and trees can grow back again, the forest can grow back again on it, and it can regain its fertility back again. That is what shifting cultivation is. So once they are done with this, if it grows infertile, it is left fallow, which means it is left untouched to regain its fertility. यहाँ पे पेड़ वापस उग जाएंगे, then they will clear another patch of land. So what has happened? They have shifted from one patch to another patch. So this is basically what shifting cultivation is. Now it is very much practiced by tribals and people who are landless, who have been dependent on the nature. Much dependent on the nature. इनके साथ जो है आप हमेशा देखोगे कि इस तरीके का कल्टिवेशन चलता आ रहा है, शिफ्टिंग कल्टिवेशन जो है वो चलता आ रहा है. ठीक है. हाय खुर्शीद, वेलकम टू द सेशन. वी आर डूइंग फॉरेस्ट सोसाइटी एंड कोलोनियलिज्म. ओके. No. Patch, a section of the forest, Tarun. A very small section of the forest. Because you're only growing enough grains for maybe 7-8 members of the family, maybe 10 members of the family or 2 families. So it is a very small section of the forest will be cleared out और वहाँ पे cultivation की जाएगी. It's not like the entire forest will be cleared out. ठीक है? So it's a traditional farming method. It's practiced globally. Tribals जो हैं, it's not just in India. You will observe people doing this ग्लोबल वाइज एंड वर्ल्ड वाइड. ये हर जगह जो है ऑब्जर्व किया जाता है और हर जगह इट इवन हैज डिफरेंट नेम्स. इट हैज गॉट डिफरेंट नेम्स, राइट? हाय पंकज, गुड इवनिंग बच्चे. हाँ जी, क्वेश्चन आपको पूछना है या मैं पूछूं? अगर इफ यू आर एक्सपेक्टिंग मी टू आस्क अ क्वेश्चन पंकज, आई विल बी गिविंग यू अ क्विज क्वेश्चन इन सम टाइम. इफ यू वांट टू आस्क एनी क्वेश्चन, यू हैव अ डाउट, प्लीज राइट इट डाउन इन द चैट. आई विल रीड इट एंड आंसर इट. ओके. Now India में, so as I told you, in different places based on the areas, based on the tribes, it has got different names. For example, जैसे Central Asia हो गया या Brazil हो गया, कहीं पे उसको लाडिंग कहते हैं, कहीं मिल्पा, कहीं छेना. India में भी in different areas it has different names. Western Ghats में it will have a different name. Jharkhand में it will have a different name. Eastern Ghats में it will have a different name. Deccan Plateau में it will have a different name. It's like that. So even in India it's called Dhya, Penda, Bewar, Newar, Jhoom, Jhooming, Podu, Kandad, Kumari, Kumari. ऐसे अलग अलग तरीके के नामों से उसे जाना जाता है. These are some local names that have been given to the people by the localites, by the people who practice it. But in general, it's either called shifting cultivation या फिर slash and burn भी कहते हैं. इसको और क्या बोलते हैं? Slash and burn भी कहा जाता है. Because what are you doing? You're slashing up the forest that there is. जो trees है उसको आप slash कर रहे हो, cut कर दे रहे हो, और फिर जो भी बचा हुआ है उसको burn कर दे रहे हो. You're burning whatever is remaining and फिर उसी ashes में you're planting the seeds. It involves cutting and burning parts of the forest, sowing the seeds and ashes after the monsoon, and crop harvest is done by October-November, which means onset of winters. यानी कि primarily जो है आप land को sow कर रहे हो during the monsoon season. So guys, another thing that I was telling you, इसमें capital जो है वो बहुत कम लगाया जाता है ना. Capital जो है यानी कि पैसे जो है वो बहुत कम लगाए जाते हैं. Otherwise, in farming, you will see people investing on fertilizers, irrigation facilities, because a lot of times it's done for trading purposes. Here, it is done for self-consumption primarily. इनका सिंपल फंडा होता है कि हमारे पास ज़मीन नहीं है, थोड़ी सी ज़मीन में हमें ग्रेन्स ग्रो करने हैं और अपने परिवार को फीड करना है। तो ये दे आर वेरी मच डिपेंडेंट ऑन नेचर, वेरी डिपेंडेंट ऑन नेचर. That is why they wait for the natural rains, and it is done during the season of the monsoon so that the natural rain can give the water required by the harvest. Fields used for few years followed by 12-8 years of fallow of the forest regeneration. यानी कि एक बार जो है आप use करोगे, you'll use the same patch of land for 4 years, 5 years. Once it starts getting infertile, you can see, right, that it is not as fertile as it used to be initially. Then you leave it alone so that it can gain its refertility. It can regain its fertility back, ताकि वो अपनी fertility को उपजाऊ जो उसकी nature है, feature है, उसको regain कर सके. साथ ही साथ दूसरी चीज क्या है, forest can grow back on it. So it is left, and that is why then the person will move from this patch that they were practicing on the other patch. इसीलिए shifting cultivation है. People keep on shifting. ठीक है? Yes, Anjali, it is also known as slash and burn. Absolutely correct. तो बच्चे एक और चीज है कि बहुत तरीके के चीजों को ग्रो किया जाता है. It usually has a rotational cropping system. It may be having multiple grains that is being sown on one field. एक ही field पे दो तरीके की चीजों को ग्रो कर लिया या रोटेशनली ग्रो किया. वंस यू हैव ग्रोन समथिंग देन यू आर ग्रोइंग समथिंग. एंड प्राइमरीली क्या है, टू हैव वैरायटी ऑफ फूड आइटम्स अवेलेबल फॉर द फैमिली. दैट इज द मेन एजेंडा. ठीक है? हाँ जी पंकज, सोशल साइंस का कोई सवाल है तो आई विल आंसर दैट फॉर यू. आई एम रेडी टू क्लैरिफाई दैट फॉर यू. ओके. हाय रोमी, गुड इवनिंग. Khurshid, I'm not able to understand what exactly are you asking. Are you asking about the quiz question? तो अभी आने वाले, अभी हुआ नहीं है. ठीक है? Crop varieties, mixed crops, millets भी, manioc भी, which means cassava जो हो गया, maize, beans, अलग अलग region में अलग अलग things are grown. Now this is what people used to practice traditionally. Okay, which means a lot of people who used to stay in forest, who were dependent on forest, pastoralists, all of these kind of people would practice shifting cultivation. Now colonizers come in. What is the impact of colonization? They ban shifting cultivation. वो क्या करते हैं, वो आते हैं और shifting cultivation को बंद कर देते हैं. It disrupts the traditional practice. Why? They had 2-3 major concerns. ठीक है? First of all, colonial restructuring of land ownership limited access to shifting cultivation areas. If you guys remember, we discussed about the Forest Act. Forest Act ने क्या किया था? It qualified the forest as reserve, protected and village forest, which means all the forest was now not accessible to everyone. So if you are practicing shifting cultivation in a particular area, अगर आप एक पर्टिकुलर जगह पे फॉरेस्ट के प्रैक्टिस कर रहे थे शिफ्टिंग कल्टिवेशन, आप वहां पे जा ही नहीं सकते हो. यू डोंट हैव द एक्सेस टू दैट प्लेस एनीमोर. दैट वाज द फर्स्ट प्रॉब्लम. सेकंड चीज क्या होती है, इंट्रोडक्शन ऑफ कमर्शियल क्रॉप्स ऑफन रिप्लेस ट्रेडिशनल क्रॉप्स. फॉरेस्ट पॉलिसीज में हमने देखा कोलोनाइजर्स रेस्ट्रिक्टेड फॉरेस्ट एक्सेस इम्पैक्टिंग द कल्टिवेशन. कल्चरल इम्पैक्ट क्या आता है, changes in land use and agriculture had significant cultural and social effects on the indigenous communities. So it might sound very complicated to you. Let's simplify this. What is happening is whatever is being cultivated, जिस भी चीज की फार्मिंग हो रही है, is being observed by the British government. British government उसको ऑब्जर्व कर रही है और जो है continuously encourage भी कर रही है और फोर्स भी कर रही है लोगों को कमर्शियल क्रॉप्स को ग्रो करने के लिए. यानी कि if you're just growing traditional crops like millets or anything which is for your personal use, which you require, is not encouraged by the government as much. अब क्या होगा, because forest का access limited है, you only have a particular area accessible to you. You're not growing what the British government is asking you to grow. It is going to be problematic for you because you will not find any support from their end. अब उनकी तरफ से कोई भी support नहीं मिलेगा. ठीक है? Pankaj, I'll be doing a separate session on that, how to write attractive answers and proper answers for boards and your exams. So you can watch that session. That will be doing a month later, around December करूँगी मैं, जहाँ पे हम देखेंगे कि proper structuring of answer, based on marks, what are the points you're supposed to write, we'll discuss all of that. ठीक है? अब policies जो भी हो गई, उसकी वजह से आप उस land पे नहीं पहुँच पा रहे हो. You may not even have the access because shifting cultivation is usually not practiced anywhere. कि अच्छा this is the forest which is around the village, here itself I will do shifting cultivation, here itself I will do cultivation. No, they would do in certain areas where it was possible to do it, not very deep in the jungle where wildlife was there, where it could get destroyed by forest and forest elephants. ऐसा करके बहुत सारा चीज they had to take into consideration. But now nothing is in their consideration, nothing is there in their power. उनके पावर में अब कुछ नहीं है, अब जो पॉलिसीज है, जैसा सिस्टम है, जो रूल्स रेगुलेशंस है, उसके हिसाब से उनको चलना है. कल्चरल इम्पैक्ट क्या आता है? What is the social and cultural impact? We understand that these were some defined set of people who were practicing shifting cultivation. ये कुछ ही लोग थे जो ज्यादातर रेगुलरली शिफ्टिंग कल्टिवेशन प्रैक्टिस करते थे. People who were landless, people who were on the move, the nomads, the pastoralists, people who were tribals and dependent on forest and did not have land of their own, but used to be completely around the forest all the time, live in the forest. अब ये सारे rules regulation की वजह से they were going to be in huge problem. They cannot even do the cultivation, तो खाना कहाँ से आएगा? Where will they work? How will they survive? All of these things became a huge challenge for them. So let's do the first question. What is shifting cultivation known as in India? India में इनमें से कौन से नामों से हम जानते हैं उसे? पेंडा के नाम से जानते हैं, नेवाड़ के नाम से जानते हैं, झूम के नाम से जानते हैं, या फिर all of these? Which of the following names is what we know shifting cultivation as in India? Do you know it with the name of Penda, Newar, Jhoom, or all of these? Pretty simple question. अभी हमने किया था. Anjali and Tarun have answered absolutely correct. Good job. Mohammad Rehan has also taken an attempt. Everyone, guys, try. Arun, Drushti, Govind, Yaya. Hi, bache. Good evening, Yaya. Have you tried answering the question? Take an attempt. It's an easy question. Which of the following do you think is one of the names or are all of the names for the shifting cultivation in India? India में किस नाम से जानते हैं हम? Students on YouTube, please feel free to answer in the chat. Chat में आप भी answer कर सकते हो. Okay, and we'll look at the answer in 3, 2, 1. And guys, it is all of the above. All these names are known for shifting cultivation in different parts of India. अलग-अलग हिस्सों में अलग-अलग नाम से जानते हैं हम उसे. ठीक है, तो पोड़ू, खांदाद, झूम, कुमरी, नेवाड़, बेवार, ये सब अलग अलग तरह के नाम है जिस नाम से शिफ्टिंग कल्टीवेशन को इंडिया में जाना जाता है. मिल्पा हो गया, ये इंटरनेशनली जो है मिल्पा एंड सम अदर नेम्स आर देयर, जिस नाम से बाहर इन डिफरेंट नेशंस शिफ्टिंग कल्टीवेशन इज नोन एज. नाउ व्हाट वाज द प्रॉब्लम? व्हाई ब्रिटिशर्स वर बैनिंग द शिफ्टिंग कल्टीवेशन? क्यों बैन किया उन्होंने? So as I was telling you, first their idea was to protect the forest. They didn't want everyone and anyone entering into the forest. उनको नहीं चाहिए था कि यार कोई भी आकर के फॉरेस्ट में घुस करके कैसे भी इस्तेमाल कर ले. They wanted to protect the forest and reserve the forest only for their personal use. तो अब उस चक्कर में people who were completely dependent on the forest, the forest dwellers especially, the आदिवासीज, the वनवासीज, जो फॉरेस्ट में ही रहते थे, जो ट्राइबल्स थे, उनके बारे में तो उन्होंने बिल्कुल नहीं सोचा. Pastoralists who were constantly on the move. Why were pastoralists on the move? We'll talk about it in the next chapter of history. But despite of that, you should know, pastoralists, guys, are the people who basically need pastures. ठीक है, घास फूस जिनको चाहिए होता है अपने कैटल्स, लाइवस्टॉक को फीड करने के लिए. Now, depending on the season, you wouldn't find proper grassland and vegetation available in all the areas. You have to keep traveling. For example, if you're staying on mountains, on the top of the mountain in winters, it will be snow covered. There will be no trees, no leaves for the cattle to eat. Summers may, however, it will be there. So pastoralists, these people, the nomads that we say, they never settle down because they have to be on the move, and they have multiple cattle. They have multiple animals, right? So they have to feed a lot of animals. They cannot just buy food or get some amount of food from the jungle and feed it to their 10 animals or 8 animals. They may have like 50, 60, 70, like a huge herd of cattle. तो अब इनको खिलाने के लिए इनको क्या करना होगा? इनको ग्रासलैंड में ही ले जा करके वो पूरा ग्रीनरी फॉर मल्टीपल मंथ्स एंड डेज दे हैव टू मेक इट अवेलेबल. तो जब ठंड का मौसम है तो फुट हिल्स में रहेंगे सो दैट नो स्नो एंड ऑल ऑफ दैट इज देयर, बट द फॉरेस्ट और ग्रीनरी और द फॉडर इज अवेलेबल। और वैसे ही जैसे गर्मी आएगी तो वो माउंटेन टॉप पे चले जाएंगे। एंड व्हाई इज दिस रेगुलेशन रिक्वायर्ड? बिकॉज व्हेन सो मेनी एनिमल्स आर ईटिंग ऑल ऑफ दीज प्लांट्स एंड ग्रासेस, it starts depleting, वो धीरे धीरे खत्म भी होने लग जाता है। So you need to give that time to these grasses, leaves and plants to grow back so that the food is again ready for the animals. So that is why depending upon the season, they keep on rotating and that is why they are not settled in one place. अब imagine करो इनको जंगल में जाना बंद हो गया तो first they will not have food for these people. They wouldn't be able to clean the forest and grow food for themselves. जहाँ पे अब वो 3 महीने 4 महीने रहने वाले वहाँ जमीन खाली नहीं कर सकते। ब्रिटिश सरकार ऐसा क्यों करी है? पहला हमें समझ आ गया, दे वांटेड टू प्रोटेक्ट द फॉरेस्ट, दे वांटेड द फॉरेस्ट ऑल फॉर देमसेल्फ। सेकंड, व्हेन यू आर बर्निंग द लैंड, ठीक है, अ सर्टेन अमाउंट ऑफ फॉरेस्ट, देयर इज अ हाई प्रोबेबिलिटी दैट द फॉरेस्ट में द फायर में स्प्रेड। जब आप थोड़े से पैच ऑफ लैंड को क्लीन करने के लिए कुछ हिस्से को जला रहे हो जंगल में, तो इट्स नॉट, there is no guarantee about the fact, right, that it will not spread. इस बात की कोई गारंटी नहीं है कि वो उतनी ही दूर जलेगा और कहीं पे कुछ नहीं होगा. It may start spreading. हो सकता है कि वो फैल जाए and then it will cause damage to a whole another section of the forest और बहुत सारा forest का area damage हो सकता है. That was there another problem that we cannot take the risk, right? Third problem क्या हो रहा है? When they are clearing the forest, they are also clearing a lot of trees and saplings which the British government wanted to grow for cash crops or for the timber. तो बहुत सारा हिस्सा वो भी क्लीन हो जा रहा था, वो लकड़ियाँ, वो पेड़ पौधे जो ब्रिटिश को चाहिए थे. तो ये तीसरा पॉइंट हो जाता है. एंड चौथा बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट पॉइंट ये हो जाता है, when people are on the move, they're not settled in one place. They clean one patch of land, they cultivate there. They clean another patch of land, they cultivate there. But there is no record of the land anywhere. So how do you impose tax on it? जब आपके पास कोई रिकॉर्ड नहीं है, कभी यहाँ जमीन में खेती हो रही है, कभी वहाँ हो रही है, कहीं छोटी कहीं बड़ी, आपको पता भी नहीं है. कई बार आपको पता चल रहा है तो देर हो जा रही है. आप टैक्स उस पर इम्प्लीमेंट कैसे करोगे? आप उस पर टैक्स कैसे इम्पोज करके टैक्स जमा करोगे? तो उनको टैक्सेस भी नहीं मिल रहे, यानी कि कल्टिवेशन हो रहा है और उनको पैसे नहीं मिल रहे. ऐसा कैसे बर्दाश्त कर लेंगे ये लोग? तो ऐसे मल्टीपल रीजंस की वजह से दे सेड नो मोर शिफ्टिंग कल्टिवेशन. So they first said it was harmful for the forest because a lot of trees were not growing which was required for the railway timber. Plus forest fire ka risk hai which will again damage the timber which was growing and the rest of the forest which the Britishers needed. Shifting cultivation made it challenging for them to calculate taxes. So for all of these reasons they clearly deduced that it's best in our interest कि हम जो है बोल दें कि भैया you cannot do shifting cultivation anymore. अब when they stopped the shifting cultivation, a lot of families which used to stay in jungle were forced to move out of the jungle or find another way to survive and run their livelihood. अब भैया ना खाना आ सकता है, ना आप जंगल पे डिपेंडेंट हो, ना वो एरियाज एक्सेसिबल है, ना ही आपके, अगर आप पैस्टरलिस्ट हो तो आपके जानवरों के लिए भी खाना नहीं है. When you cannot have access to a lot of areas of the forest, you cannot trade in those forest materials, you cannot cultivate to have your own food, you do not have the food for and fodder for your animals, you will have to find some other way to survive. So it became very very difficult for a lot of communities. They were forced to move out of the forest. उनके पास तरीका ही नहीं था, उनको जाकर अब कहीं और रहना पड़ा था, जो कि आज तक सिर्फ फॉरेस्ट में ही रहने वाले लोग थे. Somebody even had to move and switch their occupation. काम बदलना पड़ गया altogether because with the work that they were doing of forest material trading, of pastoralization, all of these things were not going to work anymore. They had to find an alternative to earn money to survive. अब naturally when you're disturbing so many lives and so many families, people are going to raise voices. So it did have a lot of rebellion, big and small, both among various communities. We'll talk about a big rebellion when we'll talk about the rebellion in Bastar in the next session. Okay? Now, so we understand that there were multiple impacts. So shifting cultivation was the first thing. What were other impacts? और क्या-क्या changes आए और क्या-क्या बदलाव आया? So we understand that there were a lot of forest dwellers, there were a lot of Adivasis. How did they used to survive? One was shifting cultivation. एक तो था कि ठीक है, they would cultivate some patch of land, वहाँ से जो खाना आया वो. Another thing was based on hunting, you guys. They would hunt small birds, animals, rabbits हो गया, partridges हो गए, partridge is a bird. ऐसे करके छोटे मोटे जो जानवर है उनको मारकर खाया करते थे. The small wildlife, small animals that were present in the jungle because they were people staying in the jungle. Now they have been moved out of the jungle. अब ना जंगल में जाना allowed है, ना रहना allowed है. So naturally they were not even able to have food. अब उनके पास खाना भी नहीं रह रहा है. The new forest laws prohibited hunting deer, partridges, small animals that used to be a practice for their hunting earlier. But this hunting rule was only for few people, for common people. It was not for everybody and it was not for all the animals. It was not applicable. ऐसा नहीं है कि ये रूल यूनिफॉर्म है. कुछ लोगों पे लगाया, कुछ लोगों पे नहीं लगाया. नॉर्मल जो लोग सर्वाइवल के लिए कर रहे हैं उनको हंटिंग के लिए मना कर दिया. ठीक है. और ये जो जानवर खाए जा रहे हैं उनकी हंटिंग मना कर दी. बट कुछ चीजों पे अभी भी अप्लाइड है. हंटिंग विच वॉज अर्लियर लीगल अब जो है लीगल बना दिया गया एंड वॉज नोन एज पोचिंग अंडर द लॉज. जो नए रूल्स रेगुलेशन बनते हैं उसके हिसाब से उन्होंने कह दिया कि भैया तुम्हारी तो कहानी खत्म है, अब तो हो गया. Those caught hunting were in fact going to be punished and marking a significant shift in their way of life and livelihood. तो अगर आप पकड़े गए hunting करते हुए तो you will be punished if you were caught. So they had to make a shift. They could not cultivate. They could not hunt. So people who were dependent on forest one way or the other, their life had become very, very difficult and they had to now pick new jobs. So let's quickly answer the next question. Shifting cultivation made it easy for the government to calculate taxes. सरकार के लिए टैक्सेस कैलकुलेट करना बड़ा आसान था शिफ्टिंग कल्टीवेशन के साथ. इज इट ट्रू और इज इट फॉल्स? It's a pretty simple question. We have been discussing a whole section on shifting cultivation. The taxes were easy to calculate for the government when shifting cultivation was happening. Is this statement true or is this statement false? अंजलि एंड तरुण हैव आंसर्ड. गुड जॉब. करेक्ट आंसर. दृष्टि ने भी सही जवाब दे दिया है. वंडरफुल. आई एम वेटिंग फॉर अरुण, गोविंद एंड करण टू आंसर. Karan, wonderful. Okay guys, and the statement is false because we know it was difficult for them and that was one major reason why they had banned the shifting cultivation, because it was challenging for them to keep a record of the whole thing, right? Now, talking about the wildlife decline. So as I told you that the customary hunting, okay, जो regular traditional hunting था, which was important for survival of so many people, so many tribes, वो ban कर दिया गया है. But colonial forest laws banned the customary hunting but promoted big animal hunting as a sport. So the hunting which was necessary for people to survive, that has been stopped, but hunting of tigers, lions, bears, that was okay. That was a sport. वो एक खेलने की चीज थी इनके लिए. ठीक है. Traditional hunting, especially of tigers, was part of Indian nobility's culture but transformed under colonial rule. So earlier, if you see, we know that we have seen pictures and paintings where people have killed many tigers. Pictures देखे हैं, photos देखे हैं, या हमने paintings देखी हैं, where there are like multiple dead tigers or lions are lying down and people are standing with their guns and rifles with a lot of pride, and it was something for them to showcase. ये कुछ दिखाने की चीज होती थी उनके लिए, बहुत pride की चीज होती थी, right? Now we have to understand that extensive hunting led to near extinction of various species. That to happen because there was no proper regulation back at that time on hunting activities by the Britishers. Only on customary hunting they had done. For big animals, they did not. Why? Big animals, the big cats like lions, leopards, etc., tigers, all of that, they used to see as savage wild animals, which was a threat to the life of humans. तो उनको लगता था कि ये बड़े जानवर जो है ये हमारे लिए बहुत खतरनाक है, इनके रहते हम कैसे सर्वाइव करेंगे, इनका ना होना ही ठीक है. So they would even give rewards to people to hunt them. उन्होंने कहा कि हम आपको पैसे देंगे, हम आपको रिवॉर्ड देंगे, रिकग्निशन देंगे, आप इनको हंट करो, खुल के हंट करो. So British believed killing large animals would civilize India. It will help India to be a better civilization, a better settlement. तो टाइगर्स, वुल्व्स और इन सब के अब जो है हंटिंग पे वो पैसे रिवॉर्ड्स देने लगे. एज अ रिजल्ट ऑफ विच यू कैन सी सच पिक्चर्स, राइट? यू कैन सी लेपर्ड एंड टाइगर, 3 of them dead, and people are so happy about it, which is so sad. So naturally, a lot of depletion and decline of wildlife happened during the colonial period, where it was encouraged for people to hunt. Only at a very later stage, they realized कि नहीं, we should not be doing this. It is not helping the wildlife. It is creating an ecological disbalance. Balance पूरा बिगाड़ दे रहे हैं हम. हमारे वाइल्ड लाइफ के लिए अच्छा नहीं है, वो खत्म हो रहा है. उनका खत्म होना बेटर सिविलाइजेशन नहीं बनाएगा. इट विल एक्ट ऑन द कॉन्ट्ररी, उल्टा कर देगा. जबकि ठीक है, तो 1875 से 1925 के बीच में, जस्ट विद इन दीज 50 years, 80,000 tigers, 1,50,000 leopards and 2 lakh wolves were killed for rewards. Can you imagine? अगर ये हमने नहीं किया होता तो today we wouldn't have been struggling to save these animals. It was hunting and poaching, and that at this scale, which has led us to reach where we are today. Tigers became sporting trophies with individuals like Maharaja of Sarguja. He shot so many animals. A British administrator, George Yule, killed 400 tigers alone. एक बंदा 400 टाइगर को मार रहा है. आज हमारी पूरी दुनिया में इतने टाइगर नहीं बचे, हम उनको बचाते फिर रहे. अगर ये हमने हरकत, ये बेवकूफ़ी उस वक्त नहीं करी होती तो we wouldn't have to struggle for such a majestic animal to be able to survive somehow by whatever means we can, how we are struggling today. इनिशियली कई सारे एरियाज थे जो हंटिंग के लिए ही असाइड कर दिए गए थे. कैन यू इमेजिन? देयर वर प्लेसेस व्हिच पीपल वर नॉट अलाउड टू एंटर टू मीट इवन द बेसिक नेसेसिटीज ऑफ देयर लाइफ, टू सर्वाइव, टू रन देयर लाइवलीहुड, बट दे वर सेट असाइड फॉर द पर्पस ऑफ हंटिंग. हंटिंग के लिए उसको साइड रख दिया है. बट ऑफ कोर्स बाद में धीरे धीरे पीपल स्टार्टेड टॉकिंग अबाउट protecting the species. Environmentalists started coming into the picture. They spoke about the result and the consequence this hunting would cause. और फिर धीरे धीरे करके इसको रोका गया. फॉरेस्ट डिपार्टमेंट कंट्रोल लेड टू जॉब लॉसेस बट ऑल्सो ओपन डोर्स फॉर ट्रेड. कम्युनिटीज वर्ल्ड वाइड इंक्लूडिंग द मुद्रकू. तो नाउ वी आर बेसिकली हंटिंग वाला पार्ट हमने कर लिया है. व्हाट वी हैव टू अंडरस्टैंड इज that later on, and much later, is when people realized, by that time guys, we had already lost lakhs and thousands of animals, which now we see are on the verge of extinction. Now we are talking about the other effects of the rise of trading in forest products. So we understand that the forest was now protected. There were people earlier who were trading in forest materials. जैसे कि forest से rubber मिल गया, wood मिल गया. ठीक है, especially the tribals if you talk about. There have been a lot of traditional tribals, not just in India but across the world, who have been trading in various things. Like for example, the teeth of the elephant, right? Ivories हो गए, या फिर आपके tree products, fruits, leaves, barks, rubber, latex, whatever you get from the forest. Multiple things people have been trading, maybe at a small scale, maybe at a large scale, but people were involved. But now regular people were prohibited from entering the forest or trading in any of these things. It naturally made the life of a lot of people difficult. People were not allowed to hunt with normal customary hunting, which was important to feed their stomach. People were not allowed to cut trees. People were not allowed to enter forests. People were not allowed to take their livestock, their animals out there for grazing. So a lot of such issues were happening. Forest department, of course, led to a lot of people a lot of problems where people were losing the jobs, losing the kind of occupation they had, losing the path in which they survived to run their livelihood. जैसे तैसे जो भी लोग जैसे भी survive कर रहे थे, कई सारे लोगों को वो छोड़ करके अब अपनी जिंदगी में बदलाव लाना पड़ा था. But it also created options for few. कुछ लोगों के लिए options create हुए भी थे. There were communities जैसे कि मुद्रुकू in Brazil and Indian आदिवासी group which switched to trading forest products. So they were earlier more dependent on the forest products. वहीं से सब कुछ मिलता था. Now what they started doing was, the moment they realized that rubber is something which is very high in demand, they left the old system of cultivation, whatever they used to cultivate. पहले जो cultivate किया करते थे उसको छोड़ करके forest से इन चीज़ों को समेटने लगे. They started procuring these things from the forest and selling it and earning good money. Mudruko people, if you talk about Brazil, okay, in the Brazilian Amazon, shifted from farming to rubber collection and trading, becoming trader dependent. So what did they do? They stopped farming altogether. Now they started collecting rubber. And now their whole idea and survival was dependent on the traders, on the business. And that is how they started making money as well, okay? So let's quickly answer this question, that for the British, large animals symbolized what? Uncivilized society, nature friendly, too costly to maintain, or civil society? What did large animals mean for the Britishers that they were encouraging so much of hunting and killing of them, and in fact were rewarding it? Uncivilized society, nature friendly, too costly to maintain, or civil society? Anjali has answered. Good job. Tarun has also taken an attempt. Waiting for others. Okay, Karan ने भी attempt ले लिया. बच्चे, it was uncivilized society. That is why they kept on saying, right, that when you kill these animals, the society will be more civilized. यानी कि मतलब क्या हो गया कि पहले जब ये जानवर हैं, तो society civilized नहीं है. It is uncivilized. Okay. Now moving on. So they saw these animals as wild, primitive, and savage. They wanted to civilize the society by killing them. Now, Indian Adivasi communities historically have been trading, as I told you, ki elephants mein goods like ivory, bamboo, spices, and a lot of other things, and often through nomadic groups like Banjaras. When the demands of the products like rubber prompted and it grew, it brought shift towards trade amongst the forest communities. They realized that the things that they were trading in now needed to have a new list. They had to give up on the old list in order to be able to survive. British colonial rule brought complete government regulation of trading also. इसको भी बदल डाला उन्होंने. They even changed this. They brought a lot of large European trading firms that were given exclusive rights to trade in specific forest products. You are understanding what they're doing? Indians who were already trading in it, who already had an idea of it, who already were doing it, they stopped them or they banned them from doing it or limited or restricted them. Whereas they brought these people from outside, the large European traders, कि तुम आओ, तुम करो, हाँ आओ, come do it. Okay, local people's grazing and hunting activities were restricted. They were not allowed, but people from outside, karo, fully छूट है. Nomadic communities like the Karawa, Karacha, Yerukulla in Madras Presidency, they lost their livelihood because now they were restricted. They couldn't trade, they couldn't enter into the forest, they couldn't do what they were supposed to, what they used to. In fact, some of these communities were even labeled as criminal tribes, especially the tribes who were on the move. जो tribes जो हैं एक जगह settle नहीं होते थे और इधर उधर move करते रहते थे, उनको criminal वाली नजरों से देखा जाने लग गया. और people who kept on operating were taken as stealers and thieves. That what are you doing? You're stealing it. This is my property. So they were compelled to work, as a result of which in factories, mines, plantations under government supervision. उनको सीधा कह दिया गया, आपको छूट नहीं है कि आप घूम घूम करके अपने जानवरों को खाना खिलाओ. You cannot move around. You don't have that leniency and liberty to move around because we feel you are criminal, your intentions are criminal. So you have to settle down in one place and you have to work for us where the government can monitor you and where we will have rules and regulations for you. Okay. Hi Manu, welcome to the session. Good evening. So they were even named as criminal tribes, which is so sad. Just for leading their cultural, traditional way of life, they were called as criminals. They were forced to work under the government. The shift to new work opportunities did not always meant improved well-being. So it might even feel to you that, okay, earlier they were on the move, they did not have a house, they did not have a proper source of regulated source of income. Now they were staying in one place, working for the government. It was better, right? It was not. Not all the times. Maybe sometimes it helped few of the people, but a lot of times it was not good because the working conditions were really bad. The wages that were paid were very, very less. They were forced to work for long hours. They were not respected. They were harassed. ठीक है, तो ऐसे कई सारी प्रॉब्लम्स जो है हमें देखने को मिलती हैं. जैसे कि आसाम में बात करो अगर आप, there were various tribes like the Santals, Oraos, Gonds who were forced to work on the tea plantations. Less payment, bad working condition, and Even when they wanted to go back home and not work in the plantation, they were not allowed to. They had to take the permission to go back to home, and that permission was most of the times not given to them. See, it was not bad the fact that even when I work and I want a holiday, I'll have to ask my manager that, sir, I want to go, give me a holiday, which is okay. That's the process. You inform them that you'll not be working. But the permission was not given to them most of the time. That was also happening after a lot of things. कि खुल के आप घर भी नहीं जा सकते हो, परमिशन भी नहीं मिलती है, आप प्लांटेशन के बाहर ही नहीं निकल सकते, which was so sad and difficult for all of these people. So in Assam, forest community members from various tribes were recruited to work on what? Factories, industries or tea plantations. Santals, Oraos, Gonds, इनको कहाँ पे काम करने के लिए भेजा गया था? Hi, Abhinandan Chaube. Not really. I think just get your basics right. Work very well in 9th, 10th and that will help you in 11th, 12th. The moment you fix your fundamentals, बच्चे questions जो है ना वो same formula, same चीज़ों पे बनी होती हैं. आप वो same basic fundamental को जब fix कर लेते हो ना तो it doesn't matter how complicated the question may look like. The process and the approach has to go from the basics only. It will be good for you. Yes, Govind, you want to ask a question? Karan ने सही जवाब दे दिया है perfect timing में. Good job. Anjali and Tarun have also answered. We have Arun, Drushti, Govind, who I am waiting for you, to answer. Please take the attempt on this question. Where were the Assam forest tribes, the Gonds, the Oraos, the Santals, forced to work? And the working conditions were harsh, wages were low, they couldn't even go home as per their own will and wish. And even if they wanted to, they had to take permission, which was a lot of times not granted. चलो देख लेते हैं. It was the tea plantations. Tea plantations में जो है उनको force करके काम कराया जा रहा था, and it definitely didn't turn out to be good or better for them than before. So what we understood in today's session was, guys, that the colonial rule had significant impact on the shifting cultivation, wildlife and trade. Shifting cultivation they banned altogether because, due to concerns about forest, like the timber getting destroyed, forest fire spreading, calculating the taxes was difficult. So and plus when it was banned, a lot of people who were dependent on it were forced to get displaced and look for another jobs. Wildlife declined due to the extensive hunting promoted by British, which they banned for the customary necessary hunting for survival of people of small animals under the name of poaching, like partridges, like rabbits, like deers. But tigers and wolves, which were seen as primitive, savage and danger to the society, that was rewarded as hunting, which naturally led to a huge decline during the colonial period in the amount and the scale of the wildlife, which in fact even today is affecting our environment and ecological balance. Trade in the forest products grew as government regulations changed, but it of course affected the traditional livelihoods. It was restricted for the people who were doing it traditionally, the forest dwellers and the Adivasis, especially in India. But European people were brought from outside and were granted free, lenient access to the forest products to trade over certain things. Nomadic communities faced displacement and exploitation when transitioning to new work opportunities. In fact, this new transitioning did not always turn out to be good for them. The working conditions were very harsh. The wages were not paid properly. They had to work for very long hours and were not even permitted to visit home or take off from work. Okay. Now, shifting cultivation had many benefits, but the government regulations forced it to decline. It's not that shifting cultivation always is good. It does have its side effects. It does have its problems. Shifting cultivation does damage the forest. It does kill a lot of, plants and animals and species. It destroys it. And it does have a risk of forest fire to it. But of course, it shouldn't have been dealt in the way it was dealt with by the Britishers. So conservationists also protested against it. Yet, to this day, there are still a few people practicing it. Although European powers desired complete control of the forest for timber and sport, could they persuade their subjects to relinquish their authority over the forest? People who were staying in the forest or the villagers, could they convince them that let us have it all, you get nothing? Okay. This is easy and nice actually. Would this convincing result in rebellion and war? That we will understand in the next session. So guys, please remember to register yourself for the sessions. Imbibe के app पे या website पे जाना है. Choose your goals as your 9th CBSE. We have sessions lined up for you every day at 6. So make sure that you're registered for the sessions. We'll be doing rebellion in Bastar today. So make sure that you're registered for that as well, because that's going to be interesting, where we will see that people did not really favor the Britishers, right? Not everyone was just going to give in and be like, fine, you want to take our forest, take it. People were going to fight for it. People were ready to sacrifice their life for it. And how that happens and unfolds, we'll discuss tomorrow. Do not forget to check out the Imbibe Lens app. This is a beautiful and a very interesting app if you actually see and utilize it. You just have to download it and give permission to your camera. Whenever you scan something, the keywords will get highlighted and important related text will appear. You can learn way more about it in much more detail. And please do not forget to connect with us on the Telegram channel. The QR code and the link is given here for you guys. You just have to scan the code or type this link and join the channel. That's one point where we directly connect with you and update you with all the important information or announcement that we have. So connect zarur kar lijiyega, theek hai? So on that note, we have finished today's session. We have understood the rise of commercial forestry and the effects that it had under the colonial rule. Tomorrow, rebellion in the Bastar and other different parts of the country by different tribes. We will do that. Till the next time we meet, guys, have a great evening. Take good care of yourselves and your loved ones. Hasta la vista, bye-bye, ciao. Good night. I'll see you tomorrow, same time, same place. Till then, stay tuned, keep imbibing, and students watching on YouTube, do not forget to like, share, subscribe the channel, and tell me in the comment section if you have any doubts or how did you like the session. I'll see you soon. Till then, stay tuned.
Keep imbibing. We believe in you.